percent overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely you're gonna get that number 1 seed, and so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 and 8.
Welcome into another episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. The Saxenian Family is the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs. We can't say thank you enough to the Saxenian Family, which after today, I guess in principle, they've agreed to be the primary sponsor for the remainder of the rest of the season through the NCAA tournament and through the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament as well, too. So exciting times as we are entering March, and it's almost March Madness time. Joining me, as always, Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. Dayon Dunlap, how are you two doing?
Doing very well, man. I'm watching this awesome battle here on the court between managers and staff. I've not seen anybody score a basket yet, but it's competitive.
No, just missed a layup.
Yeah.
Should have gone with his left. But, yeah, so we're going to have some background noise. Dayon, how are you doing?
Oh, man, I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
I'm doing great.
We're
Dayon,
doing good.
Andy said he got his hoodie today. His Let's Rage Coogs hoodie.
Yes, sir. We got that merch, and we'll be showing it off. I'll be going up to North Carolina, and I'll certainly be wearing it on the airport. So on the way there, have to brand hashtag Let's Rage merch. And for those of you that I'd imagine that you guys are beginning to get your merch as well, first of all, thank you if you have been one of the early people that ordered your Let's Rage merch. We're truly grateful, and we want to see it. Be sure to tag us on social media. You can follow us like you see on the screen at @Ayanez_5 at DHRR Review or at Dayon Dunlap, or of course just tag at Potsdam Jam and use the hashtag Let's Rage merch. We love to see your Let's Rage swag, but of course we are all here because number 1 Houston, once again number 1 Kris, it was part of the intro once again, the number 1 ranked team in the nation, the Houston Cougars men's basketball team. You know, what kind of synonym do you want to use? Dominated, clobbered, completely controlled, dominated, demolished. It was a lot. Trounced, pounded. Insert whatever kind of synonym you want. It was a complete beatdown between the Houston Cougars and the Tulane Green Wave, which, you know, kind of from leading up to the game, Tulane was the second team in the American Athletic Conference, and I mean the Houston Cougars just were on another level tonight. Final score: Houston was victorious 89-59, and it was a lot of career highs throughout, not only for the players but even apparently in the Fertitta Center, that set a new attendance record, once again beating the record that had just been set on Sunday against Memphis. I believe it was 7,763. The new Fertitta Center attendance record that was announced for today's game between Houston and Tulane. And I mean, the fans left home happy. And Juwan Roberts, we talked about it. He's had a new career high last game against Memphis. Well, he beat it out. He had 26 points. He had 7 rebounds, 26 points. Obviously, his new career high after he had hit 20 points on Sunday. Marcus Sasser had 22 points. Jarvis Walker had a new career high with 13 rebounds. And Kris, 5 of those 13 rebounds were offensive rebounds, which is amazing for a guy that's just in the perimeter all the time. And, of course, top to bottom, Jamal Shead did a little bit of everything, too. He had 10 points. He had 6 assists. Tremont Mark had 13 points. Calvin Sampson postgame highlighted how he had 0 turnovers. Just overall, top to bottom, Houston just flexed his muscles. It had 18 offensive rebounds as a team, and they only missed 35 shots. So when you look at it from that standpoint, that Calvin Sampson has said in the past, he wants them to at least get half of their misses when it comes to offensive boards, where they hit that check mark. And just really a lot of good for the Houston Cougars in this game.
And I'll go ahead and take Mr. Smith's comment for us to discuss. Jarris had some shots did not fall, turnovers early. He was kind of rushing it, but he did not let the shots not falling hurt his game. He crashed the boards. He had a really good assist. He was playing passing lane, got some deflections, block shots. So, as Coach Sampson wants the players to do, he impacted winning in other ways. So that was good to see. Hey, some of his shots early weren't close, but it did not stop him from doing other things to help the team win. So that's what you want to see from your players.
Yeah, I think Jarris had a good game. Outside of the shooting aspect, he didn't shoot efficient, but he had a good game. He was active on the rebounds, active in the passing lanes, like Kris said. I think the bench production was good as well. I mean, they didn't produce in terms of scoring, but you see Emmanuel Sharp was everywhere around the floor, taking charges, getting offensive rebounds, getting tip passes. Terrence, the same thing. And then Reggie came in. He gave an offensive spark, got some steals, got out in transition. So I think the bench production was good. I think overall it was a masterclass game from Houston, from the starters and the bench aspect, because you're not always going to score, but that doesn't mean you don't produce in the game. And they definitely produced in different areas outside of scoring.
I mean, if we're going to quibble, the early turnovers for the were un-Cougar-like, but they fixed that the rest of the game. They, finished with a minimal number of turnovers. And once they did that, Tulane played zone a lot. And the Cougs took their time and picked it apart. And that's what you want to see. Second half, the Cougs had 13 assists on 16 buckets. I mean, that's almost perfect. 13 assists on 16 made field goals. That's sensational. Mm-hmm. They finished the game with 12 turnovers. First half, they had 8, only 4 in the second half. So, like Deion said, it was a masterclass, man. It was a methodical masterclass beatdown of the second best team in the conference.
And it was done in so many different ways. I mean, during that stretch in the first half, Houston, it looked like they had a block party. There were how many times Jalen Cook got blocked on layups? Houston defensively overall, they played really, really well. Not only did they hold Tulane to 19 of 50 shooting, I had to look up at the stat sheet, but they forced 18 turnovers as well for the game, and just overall, top to bottom. There was a specific question where they asked about, or not question, instance that kind of sticks to me, and it was, first of all, Marcus Sasser had another starter night. He didn't even lead the Cougars in scoring, but he just seems so comfortable out there. But on one instance, I believe he had just hit a pull-up three-pointer, and this was in the first half. Houston got to stop, and they played complete great defense for 30 seconds. I believe it was Kevin Cross that got the ball in the corner. He came the monster trap. He had to pass it out to Cook. He missed the shot. Houston went down. They didn't score. Marcus Sasser shot a 3. Not only was he the first one to meet Cook back, he completely stopped him and allowed Tremont Mark to catch up and get a block too. Just overall, a whole bunch of different aspects. Even free throw shooting was good for Houston. It wasn't as good as they did against Memphis, but 17 of 22, that's something that they'll take any day of the week.
They had 16 steals tonight too. Season high. They were everywhere. They were active in the passing lanes. They were active on double teams, traps. One thing that Coach Sampson commented on, he wanted us to see get better. The individual defense was very good, up to Kelvin Sampson standards. I got to comment on this, man. Okay, I'm sorry, fans.
We had a manager dive into the front row seats, and they just took down all the seats in the front row of the Fertitta Center.
The money seats clean it up. Have been knocked down. Even the managers play Cougar defense and Cougar hustle. The culture is everywhere, even in the managers. Look at that. The folded chairs got knocked back. He was diving to save a ball going out of bounds. It is just amazing. From the head coach down to the managers. It's amazing, man.
It is infectious.
Wow. Cougar basketball. It's amazing. Cougar basketball, something else.
And on the other end, you have Javier Francis just shooting around.
Yep, taking shots, working on his game, going from layups to the half circle, down the free throw line, working on his touch around the basket. These guys want to get better, and that's what you. And Dan, I'm not sure you had a chance to hear the post game, but Sasser and Jamal both said when they were asked, what could y'all do to get better? They both said everything, everything. So, hey, they still have room to get better, and I think we agree on that. February, they still have room for improvement, getting to March to play the best basketball. That's what you want.
Yep, I think this is one of their better performances as a team. I'm sure that they will agree, just from the ball movement aspect, their unison on defense, the way they got the deflections, which led to steals, which led to more transition baskets, the way they rebounded, the way they shed the ball, really pretty much in every aspect. I think they played really well. I think J1 really set the tone early for the game. And I was just thinking, watching the game, how previous 4 or 5 games before the last two, he was in foul trouble and he couldn't really play heavy minutes. And we were talking about, like, if he stayed out of foul trouble, he showed a glimpse of how dominant he could be because he impacted the game so much during those times he was in foul trouble. In these last 2 games, I mean, career performances, he stayed out of the foul trouble and he's dominated. He has really good hands and touch around the basket. And I think this team is growing and getting better and playing together, playing good together, because like we mentioned in previous episodes where it may have been 1 or 2 players who have good games. I think this was the first game that I've seen consecutively where everyone on the team has had a good game and it's been a dominant performance as a team.
And they've clinched a share of the AAC regular season championship with tonight's win and have a chance to wrap it up outright Saturday in East Carolina, against East Carolina in Greenville, which 2 games ago, if they win Saturday, wrapping up the title. That's pretty impressive, man. Pretty impressive. Once again, as everyone who follows the Cougs knows, this team lost, Andy, how many starters from last year's team?
4, because Coach Sampson made sure to point it out once again after today's post-game news conference. 4 starters. They lost 4 starters off of last year's Elite 8 team, same as they did a season ago when they lost 4 starters from the Final 4 team.
And this year, the biggest difference is those 4 starters from last year have been replaced with freshmen, younger players. So it's taken them a while to adjust to the Cougars culture and learn the offense, learn the defense. So kudos to the staff. Starts with the head person in charge, Kelvin Sampson. Player development, Juwan Roberts he's like a poster person of the player development of this program. And he comes back next year. Him and Javier Francis up
He's
front.
gonna be a monster.
Wow.
Jeez. And to go back to Kelvin Sampson, he gave all the credit to his son, one of his assistants at Kellen Sampson, who Chris, we know, we watch, we've seen countless practices by now over the course of the season, but after each and every practice, Kellen Sampson works with Juwan Roberts and Jarvis Walker. After practice, they work on various different things. They all make sure they get their shots up, and that's just the stuff that we can see. Just imagine what they do on a daily basis when there's no one watching them. But on that note, we'll segue. We thank everybody that's joining us watching live on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, or if you're checking us out audio only the next day or whenever you may be listening. We thank you for making sure that we are a part of your day here for Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. And we thank every single one of you guys that it seems like we're starting to run into more people that watch the show, and I can't stress enough how awesome that is, and truly how thankful we are whenever you come and just tell us that we're doing a good job, and it just motivates us to keep going. So obviously we can never say thank you enough for all the support that you guys have shown us, but we like to remind everybody, Chris already put it in there, so I'll be perfect segue, but I'd like to remind everybody that this is Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. And of course, we also like to say thank you to our other partners for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, beginning with Star Pizza, starpizza.net. Be sure to visit them online to check out Houston's best pizza since 1976, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Be sure to make Star Pizza a stop on the way home, because let's face it, you can't get enough pizza. There's no such thing as too much pizza. And of course, we also like to say thank you to Ryan Monso and at GoCougs.com with HOUNIL. Here's the message from Javier Francis about HOUNIL.
Hi, my name is Javier Francis, and I'm partnering with HOUNIL. Hey, we need the fans to go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to our player-created content. Supporting Cougar basketball helps its players stay among the top teams in the country. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com to subscribe. Thank you, and go Cougs.
So once again, a thank you to HOUNIL.com, and be sure to visit them. If you're interested in subscribing to player-created content, not going to find it anywhere else on except HOUNIL.com. And of course, Kris, like you posted on the comment section, be sure to check out the official merch view. I guess we could call it official merch shop. Like I said, we are slowly beginning to see our merch arrive in various locations. I got my hoodie yesterday. Kris, you got your shirt. Was it 2 days ago? When did you get your shirt?
Yesterday. And my high school classmate got her hoodie in the state of Washington yesterday as well. So
look at that.
Fans are all over the place.
Rage Coogs is national. Of course, we like to plug it as well because it does support us, and it's an awesome way to support us because you get to show off and have some Let's Rage Coogs swagger, whether you want to have the There Will Be Rage line. That's two different logos that you could have when it comes to the shirt, and obviously the back comes the same on either lines. Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial Houston postgame show, streaming on YouTube, and you check out the There Will Be Rage merch line. See the cougar right there. That's the awesome cougar, and it comes in 3 different colors, and it's also available either in a t-shirt or hoodie. I ordered the hoodie. This is the one I got, the Let's Rage hoodie, and I'm excited. Like I said, I'm gonna be traveling up to North Carolina for Houston's next game against East Carolina, so I'm looking forward to stay warm with official Let's Rage Coogs merch, which is just awesome because it's a sign of where we are continuing to grow. And Luis Rivas puts, good to meet you today. It was awesome that I met him on the concourse. I believe it was during halftime. And again, you shout it out and continue to give us motivation to continue to keep going. It's just awesome to hear from you guys whenever you guys are at the arena. It really makes our day. I can't stress it enough. But enough of talking about us. Let's segue, because this is Let's Rage Coogs, and we are focusing on the Houston Cougars, who once again are coming off another victory. Number 1 Houston. They look like the number 1 team tonight. Defeated Tulane 89-59. Now, we have a clip from head coach Kelvin Sampson and Marcus Sasser, and I'm going to go ahead and play it, and we're going to segue on the other side of it. Kelvin Sampson had really high praise for Marcus Sasser. We're going to kind of dive into him in this segment. He called him, he's his player of the year for the American Athletic Conference. That's what Kelvin Sampson had to say after Houston's victory over Tulane.
I would ask two questions. Like, at this point in the season, what are you most pleased about, and what are the things that concern you as you hit the fun stuff now?
Just our efforts getting better. A lot of people are playing a lot harder for a longer amount of time. So that's just one thing that we've been harping on, just playing harder and playing a full 40 minutes. So I think that's just one thing we've been pleased with.
Like he said, just coming together, as a team. And, I still feel like we haven't reached our ceiling. So that's always, a positive heading into March. Want to be playing our best basketball in March. So, I feel like that's the most exciting thing, as the season continues. Really.
And what are the things you still need to work on?
Everything. A little bit of everything. You can't get,
We're
going to Andy here and then Dusty in the back. Go ahead, Andy.
But for both Marcus and Jamal, just and going back to the offensive rebounding, but really today it's kind of done by committee with multiple different players. What was kind of the key for this game and being able to have that success on the offensive glass?
Just, like he said, when we first got into Cougar basketball, it's what we've been doing for a while before we got here. It's been engraved in this program. So just, following what we're used to doing, getting back to what we need to do.
I just say ball movement, body movement, and then, just all 5 guys on the floor, just unselfish. It's real fun to play with a team, and, nobody cares, who scores the ball. And that's one of, I feel like that's kind of all 5 guys, best strength, kind of passing the ball. So I feel like that's how we got a lot of open shots, and that led the offensive rebounding.
Juwan's really, really improved. He really has. He could probably beat all three of these guys. Marcus, you guys see him after they get here. We actually recruit him. I mean, we don't run to the mall, down to the mall, and start handing out scholarships. I remember Marcus when he was the summer between his junior and senior year. I remember Jamal. I wanted to make Jamal start running sprints as I was recruiting him. I said, I better sign him first. But J1 is a byproduct of our player development system. Kellen deserves a lot of credit for that position. All my coaches, we sit down and we meet, and we're constantly looking at what other people are doing, especially NBA guys, in terms of player development and what's the cutting edge. Who's trying to get better. How do you get better at something? That's why I surround myself with people that want to get better. If you're not in this circle, if you're trying to help us get better, we'll let you in the circle. But if you're not, we don't have any time for that. But I will say this. To me, the player of the year in this league has been Marcus Sasser. He's the best player in this league. Don't base it on stats. Marcus' stats could be a lot better if he took a lot more shots. But he impacts winning in so many ways. And that's why I think the player of the year should be the best two-way player. Is Marcus the best offensive guard? Maybe not. I don't know. There's some really good offensive guards in this league, talented kids. But I don't think there's a better two-way player in this conference than Marcus Sasser. And that's why when you start thinking about who's the best player in the league, look at both ends. And that's why I think Marcus is the best player.
So once again, that was Houston Cougars head coach Kelvin Sampson, as well as Marcus Sasser and Jamal Shead, who you heard on the clip. So, of course, like I said, segueing before we played that clip, we want to talk specifically about Marcus Sasser and the high praise that Sampson gave him. And the argument that he gave him, which is valid, he thinks that Sasser should be the player of the year in the American Athletic Conference this season because he's the best two-way player in the conference.
I already had a friend of mine. He heard the post game, those comments. He disagreed. He didn't tell me who he thinks the best player is in the conference. But the two-way part of it is important because defense is important as well. But obviously, Marcus could score more if it were needed here on the team, but it's not. So that could be a factor in some voters' eyes who give out the award. But I have a hard time thinking of somebody who's a better two-way player, honestly, as a guard. Kendrick Davis has never really been known for defense. Jalen Cook, offense. David DeJesus, Julius, not really, great on both ends. So who do you think is better than, Marcus as a two-way player, as a guard? Give me some names and, college battle maybe. That's close. But, I mean, it's not a long list.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Coach Sampson. I think Marcus is the player of the year and the best two-way guard in the conference, I think. And he's referencing Kendrick Davis because Kendrick's averaging 21 points a game. So in the days of analytics, people looking at stats and automatically going off of that, I think he's just speaking to Marcus is important. And when I was watching that game, I was literally thinking Marcus is the best point guard in the country. I know he plays the off guard spot at times a lot for Houston because Jamal is the primary point guard, but in essence, Marcus is a point guard. He's going to be projected as a point guard, and his development in making plays is taking this game to the next level this season, in my opinion. And that's where he's taking the next step. He could score more if he took more shots and played, I don't want to say selfishly, but just focused on taking more shots. I think he could average more points, but he's more efficient. He guards the opponent's best player like he was guarding Jalen Cook. That doesn't go unnoticed. That's something that most guards can't do, and he actually made it tough for him because Jalen Cook is really a talented offensive player and got it going in the second half. And so, I mean, on a night-to-night basis, not just tonight, all year round, he guards the opponent's best player and he slows them down, to his credit, most of that. And so I think he had a tremendous game. He makes big moment shots, whether it's momentum shots that really get Houston going and kind of ignites their defense, I think. And so, man, Marcus is definitely, in my opinion, should be the player of the year in the conference.
I'm kind of curious who the coaches vote for, because we don't vote. Media does not get a vote for the conference award. So I wonder, some people will vote for DeAndre Williams, in the front court. I'll say this for sure. The first team all conference is going to be something, because they're probably going to be some players on second team who are like, wow, I should have been first team. So I'm kind of curious how that's going to work. There are a lot of players, a lot of talented players in the conference. Some have bigger roles for their teams than other players. Like Marcus Sasser might be the only all conference player for the Cougs. But Juwan Roberts, is putting up a hell of a year. And he should be all conference second team, third team, something. So I'm kind of curious how the vote is going to be for first, second, and third team.
Sticking on Marcus Sasser real quickly, kind of focusing in on him, Kris, on something that I noticed in this game, and it's not even in particular this game, but something that's really starting to become a trend with him. But whenever he's out in transition, his speed is underrated when it comes to being able to push the pace and being able to create shots for others in transition. And whenever he's crossing over and getting into the lane, at times it looks like he's skating, and then he's kind of gotten much more comfortable, might not be the right word, but he's gotten really good at pulling that Euro step, which either creates an open layup for himself, or like today, he did a good job of being able to kick out and collapsing all the defense and being able to find teammates around the perimeter. And I think that's an underrated aspect of his game that really, it's clearly been a strength this season, that it's been an area that he's improved in.
Yeah, that Euro step, I mean, it's a go-to move for him in transition. Either to seek out the contact, to avoid it. That's something he's added to his bag during the offseason, and he brings it out. His overall game, 5 boards, 5 assists tonight, 20-plus points.
6 assists, too.
He's doing, things that are necessary to win. Times to drive and attack the basket, he can do that. Hit a clutch 3, he can do that. Toss it to J1, he can do that. Lock down defense, he can do that. So he's doing everything necessary to help his team win. Now, whether that results in Conference Player of the Year, we shall see. I mean, it's not that big a deal to him, because he has more team goals to accomplish than just that. But we'll see how it all plays out. And the vote will come out, I think, the first day of the conference tournament, I think.
Mm-hmm. I know media gets to vote for the postseason conference tournament, all team.
So we'll see. But yeah, because I'm kind of curious. Like I said, Marcus Sasser, he's playing so much better. Juwan Roberts is playing so much better once he avoids those fouls. His defense on the perimeter is very good. Reggie Chaney's defense on the perimeter is very good. So I mean, this team is winning in different ways, as good teams do.
Yeah, Andy, exactly your point to Marcus and his ability to control the pace and transition. Definitely, that's one of the things that I was when I was thinking he was the best point guard in the country. It was during that one of those moments where, in the past, I would have said he would have took it out and looked to pull up for a 3. And it's oftentimes in this game where he penetrated and got inside and finished or created. And it was really just sticking out to me, the way he's seeing the game, his basketball IQ, and kind of reading plays and reading in transition and making the right decision. And so, yeah, I think that was a great analysis that you said and stood out, because he definitely is playing better in transition, getting into the basket and finishing with either hand. And that Euro step, I know he went viral a couple of weeks ago, so I know the opponents are aware of that. I know one of them, Forbes or Cross, one of them played it well. One of those moves well tonight. And so, but man, Marcus, he's on a tear, and the way he's developing and playing right now and letting the game come to him, think it's a scary sight for Houston opponents.
Absolutely. And when you look at it, and Dan, something that you mentioned earlier in the show, which I completely agree, this is not even probably, I would say this is the most complete game for the Houston Cougars overall this season. Not only that they hit their shots, they assisted, like you said, at one point, how really solid they were from an assist standpoint in the second half, and then how strong they were defensively. Now, not necessarily on the same topic, but I think something that you can kind of fit in. James Mueller, who's a friend of the show, the Daily Cougar, asked Coach Sampson about Emmanuel Sharp and his offensive rebound, and how he had kind of excelled in this game. And Coach's response was, well, let's see if he can do it again in the next game against East Carolina. That's kind of the mentality of this team. You saw in that clip when they asked Marcus and Jamal Shedd what they can improve in, as we have Joseph Duarte of the Houston Chronicle. Hey, Joseph, you have any word? Let's rage. There we go. He got it. Let's rage. We got him to say it. But I lost my train of thought. Oh, when it comes to being able to connect the dots, when Jamal Shedd and Marcus Sasser said, there's a lot of the stuff that we have to improve on. That's just the mentality of the team. It's not like they're never satisfied. And something that I can't remember if it was Shedd or Sasser who said it, but they still feel like they haven't played up to their ceiling. They still feel there's a lot of room to improve. And if you ask them for the rest of the season, however many games they have left, I believe that they're going to continue to keep saying that they have room to grow until, they ran out of games, or they run out of games.
And Dan touched on it. Excuse me. Emmanuel Sharp. These guys, man was everywhere tonight. He had 3 0 boards. Let's see if he has 3 0 boards on Saturday. That's what Coach Sampson was harping on. Man did it once. Can he do it twice? And then 3 times in a row if he does that. So it's good to see this team still has room to get better. And we touched on it in one of the early shows of this season. This is a special team. This could be a special season. So the conference tournament is almost here, and the NCAA tournament is around the corner after that. So this team has a chance, and that's really all you can ask for every season, is that the team, as a fan, your team has a chance to compete for a national championship, and this team does.
And they look like, to me, they came out with a sense of urgency to prove that they're the number 1 team tonight. I think of recent weeks, number 1 team's been losing. And I would guess that coaching staff was like, let's go out and prove tonight why we're the number 1 team. And they came out, made the first punch, second half made the first punch, and pretty much, like we said, dominated this game tonight.
And I want to touch on this if I can scroll through the earlier comments, because this right here, seeing FC packed to the brim and setting a new attendance record on a Wednesday night. That's true. That is really true.
Shocked. No,
Wednesday
I agree.
Wednesday night, sold out crowd, record crowd on a Wednesday night for Houston Cougar fans. Who'd have thunk that 5 years ago? Nobody.
And this was an 8 p.m. tip-off too.
That's right. Later tip. Yep.
And I remember whenever they did the national anthem, and I was just looking at the crowd, and there's still 10 plus minutes left until tip-off, and there were people in their seats. They were all ready. They were all standing up for the I'm blanking for for the national anthem. And I took a picture of it, and I said, they're all in their seats. They're all really supporting this program, which just goes to show how much, like you said, Chris, where the program has come from just 5 years ago and coming off the heels of what, undoubtedly was Kelvin Sampson's best availability for the entire season, where he touched on a little bit about it, and Marcus Sasser, we have one more clip from Marcus Sasser. Already spoke additionally after the official news conference, but he kind of mentioned it, where it kind of starts with Coach Sampson, and from that availability, how his brain is just wired differently from a competitiveness standpoint. When he told that story about he figured out his car could go 425 miles before it needed to refuel for gas, and he figured out that it was like 1,000 or so miles to get from Houston to North Carolina.
Like what, 10,
So
50, something like that? Yeah.
So he made it a competition against himself that he only wanted to make 2 stops, and he wanted to get to North Carolina without making any additional stops. And he wouldn't stop for gas whenever the check engine light was going. It was 423 miles of gas he had used up. He was going to make it into and only 2 stops. He didn't even drink any water or anything because he didn't want to have to stop to use the restroom or anything. But I think that just showed a peek in the window of how different he's wired, and really top to bottom. Coach Sampson said it multiple times throughout the season. The standard for a program starts with the head coach, and everyone else follows. And when you hear that story, and you hear a lot of the players talk about competitiveness, and really that's how they get better in practice, it kind of makes a lot of sense of where it comes from, and really the mentality of that program. But put a quick segue. I'd like to remind everybody that is watching live on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel that they are listening to Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Of course, thank you to everyone that may be listening to our audio-only platform, so as well, wherever you get Podslam Jam, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. And of course, we also like to say thank you to our other partners for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family, beginning with Star Pizza, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is Houston's best pizza since 1976. Be sure to check them out online at starpizza.net, where not only you can check out their menu, but you can even order, so you can just stop by and pick up and head home. And of course, also a big thanks to HOUNIL. We'll send it over to Javier Francis once again for a message on HOUNIL.
Hi, my name is Javier Francis, and I'm partnering with HOUNIL. Hey, we need the fans to go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to our player created content. Supporting Cougar basketball helps its players stay among the top teams in the country. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com to subscribe. Thank you, and go Cougs.
So as we kind of wind things down here on Let's Rage Coogs, we talked about Marcus, we talked about Jarris, we've talked about Jawan Roberts. Now, a comment that Jaja mentioned in the comments about Emmanuel Sharp, and something that was kind of touched on during the news conference availability. King Jaja said Sharp shot didn't fall, but he did a lot of the little things in today's victory over Tulane, which, again, going back to kind of the theme of the news conference today, is just when it comes to, again, like you mentioned, Chris, earlier in the show, they lost 4 starters from last year's Elite 8 team. They replaced them with a lot of young players, and particularly when it comes to the freshmen. But Emmanuel Sharp, it seems like one of the players going back to development, where he's just getting more comfortable, and now he's beginning to be able to impact games in more ways than just being a hot 3-point shooter.
Right, and right now he's in a shooting slump. The last 3 games, his shot hasn't fallen, but he's still impacted, helped the team win in other ways, and that's what you want. Almost every player. I mean, Marcus Sasser had a shooting slump this season. If you play basketball, you're going to have a slump at some point, but it's on you to help your team win in other ways: rebound, defense, steals, cut, move, all those other things, and these guys do that. So it's great to see, and it's a young team. A lot of freshmen. At one point, we saw Emmanuel on the floor with Emmanuel. Who was it? Emmanuel, Javier?
It was Emmanuel, Terrence, Javier Francis, Jarris, and Jamal. Jamal Shred was the lone vet.
So just think about that. So I want to touch on, if I can, Mr. Smith's comment right here. That last one, JT. JT.
We'll talk about that one next.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that one next.
If they went out, is there any way they can be jumped by Kansas or Purdue, the second number 1 seed?
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah, especially Kansas, when you think of Kansas in the Big 12.
Yes.
If they win out, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting. That's a conversation that we had before this game about how first and second round matchups, locations work out, and then even Purdue as well, being in the Big Ten and playing their other teams in that conference, if they can win the Big Ten tournament. Absolutely can see Houston being jumped. Even Alabama, who is in a really tough outing against South Carolina tonight, they came away with a victory. And I mean, a lot of different things are going on with the Alabama program, but it's an interesting point from Houston because even if they were to win out and do everything they're supposed to, we still see them sliding out. I could see them sliding out from
I
that
could see
national
it
perspective.
because they're not in a power conference, and
And
a
the quad
loss
one opportunities.
like Virginia had today on the road at Boston College hurts the Cougs, because it was a bad loss for Virginia. Other teams, like if St. Mary stumbles, that looks bad for the Cougs. Little things like that because the Cougs are not in a power conference. That's just part of the issue they have for a few more weeks. It won't be an issue in the Big 12, come July 1st and then season in the fall. But they can still be number one seed. They could still be one of the best teams come tournament time. And there's not too many teams that want to play Houston. And there's not too many teams that can beat Houston in the tournament.
Yeah, I don't think that those teams can jump Houston if Houston take care of business. I think Houston's resume is going to be what it is. It's going to be good enough, and I think the eye test will be taken in consideration how Houston has looked and how dominant and consistent they've been throughout the season. I think the respect from Houston program overall will hold them in that spot if they take care of business and don't lose. I think Kansas may have a slight opportunity, but they won't go undefeated for the rest of the season. They may win the Big 12, and they'll get respect for winning the Big 12, but it's not going to be at this point in dominant fashion to where, in my opinion, they'll jump Houston. And so I think Houston, if they just take care of their business, they can only go up, in my opinion.
I hope you're right, but you're in the minority of national opinion, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because excuse me, real quick, Andy. During the broadcast of the game on Monday, Kansas and was it Baylor?
Mm-hmm.
And they brought it up there. TCU. Yeah, TCU. I'm sorry, TCU. Baylor was on Saturday. They brought it up during the broadcast, and I hadn't even thought about it. But someone brought it up by if Kansas wins out the remaining games in the Big 12 and then wins the Big 12 Conference Championship, they should be the number one overall seed, not just bump Houston, but the number one overall seed. And I was like, really? During this broadcast? So the discussion, people are thinking about it. And it's just one of those things that the Cougs, because they're not in a power conference, have to deal with. And it's not right, fair, whatever. But, Dan, I agree with you. I just don't believe enough other people agree with us.
Yeah, even with the Purdue.
Now those people are just talking just like we talking.
Yeah.
And so when it comes down to those people in the rooms making those decisions, reality will sit in, I think. We'll see, though.
I will say it seems like the Boilermakers are kind of trending in the direction you don't want to be trending in heading into March now. Obviously, there's still 2 weeks where they can turn it around. I think Kansas is much more they have a much more argument. Yeah. Right. Correct. Because of how tough the Big 12 is, the opportunity that they have to be able to go out and win the Big 12. I'd certainly see the Jayhawks being able to make the argument. Purdue, not so much with kind of the stumbles that they've had in the last few days and really the past few weeks. But it's an interesting conversation now, Kris. What I wanted to toss it to you, what we're kind of touching on before the game, even if, say, Kansas were to drop, say, just to make it for simplicity's sake, Alabama and Kansas got ahead, or they finished, so come Selection Sunday, they're the higher seeds than Houston. And even if Alabama were to stay in the South region, Kansas got to the Midwest region, and whichever, if Houston were part of the East or West region, they would still have their first or second round games in the locations closest to them, correct?
Correct. I'm 99% sure of this. I'm going to confirm it in the morning with the NCAA office. But even if Kansas will go any of the 4 seeds, it will go to the regional, first round site closest to them. So for Kansas, that's Des Moines. Okay, so that's where they'll be first. And then Houston and Alabama would be in Birmingham in the first 2 rounds. They can still be sent to different regions, like we've seen in bracketology, Cougs in Alabama for the first 2 rounds, but they are in the Kansas City region because right now they are the second overall number 1 seed. Another, like Bama, would be in the Louisville region, for example. Kansas will still be in Des Moines for the first 2 rounds, but then they would be sent to Las Vegas regional. So the first 2 rounds, city-wise, the team will go to the city closest to them. The committee goes by within driving distance, officially, within like 4 hours, 46 hours, if it's a drive. So the closest city for the Cougs is Birmingham. The closest for Kansas is Des Moines. So that's where they will be regardless of regional site. But first 2 rounds, Des Moines for Kansas, Birmingham for Houston.
I want to bring up King Jaja's comment. Worst case scenario for Houston is in the West region. I would disagree with that. I would say the worst case scenario is if they somehow ended up in the Midwest region with Kansas. I think that would be the worst case scenario for Houston for the reason that you stated, where that regional would be in Kansas City, Missouri.
The way Kansas is playing lately, it'd be more of a battle. Yeah. But I'm not sure it's going to happen. I mean, Tennessee lost. Tennessee's going in the wrong direction, like Purdue's going in the wrong direction. Just from the reveal on Saturday, teams have lost. So as long as the Cougs do their part, they'll be fine. And Andy, you said it. Kansas is, I think, the only team that could jump Houston in seeding. Nobody else. As long as the Cougs win, of course.
Agreed. And again, with kind of limited opportunities left for Q1s, at Memphis will be a quad 1 opportunity. Neutral site, depending on where Memphis is, if they were to meet Memphis in the American Athletic Conference tournament, that could potentially be another neutral site game. But I'm not sure where Tulane is in the net rankings. But outside of Memphis, I think that's really the only chance that Houston has at quad 1 wins, correct? 2 more opportunities. UCF, I guess, since they are in the top 6, but even in a neutral site, it wouldn't be enough, correct? Because neutral site games are 1 through 45, I want to say.
We could look it up, but the Cougs would probably have to lose twice, and I'm not sure a loss in the conference tournament would hurt them, unless in the first round. Beyond that, because they're pretty much locked into their position as long as they don't lose like Saturday to East Carolina. Have another bad loss, they should be fine. So they'll do their part. They'll be okay. And clearly, if they win at Memphis on March 5th in a game that means a lot for Memphis and beyond the Cougs, wanting to fine tune and beat a rival, that game means nothing because the Cougs should have wrapped up the regular season title by then. So,
they could do it as soon as Saturday.
Yeah. But Memphis wants to win that game because it's Houston and Memphis, all those other things. But in the grand scheme of things, if the Cougs win at Memphis, it could help them, but it won't hurt them if they lose.
Absolutely. And Big Jack 512 makes a great point. Alabama still has to play a red-hot Texas A&M team right now at the moment. Mr. Smith put it right there. Quad 1 for neutral is 1 through 50. According to Mr. Smith, which would put UCF, which is the 3rd team when it comes to the net rankings in the American, just outside of that. So really, it's just Houston and Memphis from that standpoint. But as we start to wrap things up, kind of reeling it back into Houston and Tulane, were you guys as surprised with the way this game went out? I think, obviously, when they played in New Orleans a month ago in January, late January, mid-January, it was much more. It was kind of like a game of runs. It's kind of similar. Houston kind of imposed its will. The Green Wave made a bit of a run to cut it. I can't remember. They got it within single digits at that point, and then Houston closed it out with another run towards the end. But this game was just complete domination from a Houston standpoint.
It was surprising. I expected more from Tulane, honestly. But Dan made a great point. The Cougs came out and wanted to prove that they are the number 1 team in the country. Took care of business. And they did that. So, hey, there's only a handful of teams that can compete and beat the Cougs when the Cougs are playing well, playing their A game. And clearly Tulane is not one of those teams.
Agree.
Yeah, Tulane, their second and third best player didn't have it going tonight. We're crossing Forbes. Cook had it going. He started cooking in the second half, and I mean, but it still wasn't enough as a team wise. And so, I mean, like Chris just said, when Houston is playing at a level that they're playing at, and you don't even play a C game to Tulane, then you're gonna get blew out the water like they did tonight. But for Houston, I mean, I think all things are pointing in the right direction. They're sharing the ball. They're unselfish. They're making shots. They're making free throws. The defense is still the staple of the team. And so, I mean, they're just really, really looking like a well-oiled machine. And I'm excited for what's to come here in the future.
And can I say real quick? I want to salute our fans. You know, it's after midnight. You know, we have a large number of folks tuning in to the show on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube and making comments. Thank you. Thank you very much for LRC After Dark. So we appreciate your support.
More popular. We might have to start doing LRC After Dark more often.
You know, staying up with us to discuss a 30-point butt whooping. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Like I said, we can never say thank you enough for the support that you guys have shown us. Now, as we wrap things up, kind of looking ahead, there's only 3 games left in the regular season. It's East Carolina at East Carolina on Saturday. Chris, I absolutely agree with what you said earlier in regards to that Cougars cannot afford to lose that game from a standpoint of potential seeding. I don't expect them to lose it, but, you know, you never know if games aren't played on paper. And then they wrap things up next Thursday, the final home game of the season against Wichita State, which would be senior night as well for the Cougars. They're going to honor 3 seniors in Reggie Chaney, Darius Bowser, and, of course, Marcus Sasser. So that's going to be an emotional night, too. And then they wrap it up at Memphis a week from Sunday at the FedEx Forum before they head into the conference tournament. We heard Jamal Shedd and Marcus Sasser's answer when it comes to what they're looking for this final stretch. Everything. They want to improve in anything. If there's one area that you guys would pick, what would be one thing that you're kind of looking forward in these final 3 games as Houston heads into the conference tournament?
Continue consistency. Well, I guess being more consistent on the offensive boards and making free throws. You know, those 2 things. The defense is solid. It was better tonight in some areas. Coach Sampson said that as well. The rotations were tighter. They got more steals. And as Dan has wanted to see for much of this season, they converted those steals and pushed the pace, scoring quicker. So if they do those things, they'll be fine.
Yep, and that's exactly what I was thinking. Just continue to create off-script points, whether it's in transition or turning steals into transition points. I think if they can do that and do that at a high clip, they're going to be even more dangerous, because in the half court, if they execute and make shots like they can, then they get those easy points on top of that. I think it only makes the team only better.
As we see a flurry of people go behind Chris, it's starting to show that they're starting to close things down here inside of the Fertitta Center, and we're going to wrap it up as well here on Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Saxenian Family. Of course, we'd like to say thank you to our other partners, beginning with HOU, NIL, and Star Pizza. Of course, like I mentioned, big thanks to the Saxenian Family for being the primary sponsor of not only this episode of Let's Rage Coogs, but for the entire, we could officially say now, for the entire basketball season. Started way back when in November against Northern Colorado. The Saxenian Family has been the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs throughout the entire season. Dan, I'll go to you first. Where can people find you, and any final takeaways from Houston's victory over Tulane?
Biggest takeaway is Houston is peaking, like just one of the comments. Houston is definitely peaking right now at the right time. I think everyone is settled in their roles, and they're beginning to thrive in their roles and knowing what they need to do for this team to be great on a game-to-game basis. You can find me on all social media platforms at Dayon Dunlap. We appreciate all you guys' continual support. Keep going. Keep staying with us, man. We appreciate it.
And I'm kind of curious, what is the capacity of Tillman's building? Because we had a record attendance for the second straight game of, I think tonight was 77-63. So I wonder what is the record capacity with everybody on the concourse. Maybe we'll see that next week for senior night. But the Cougs, 30-point win tonight. They were methodical in their execution 89-59 over Tulane. I think they continue to get better. They're striving and working to get better. And Andy's going to be in, Greenville, North Carolina. So we'll have another post-game show on location this Saturday. So looking forward to that. So thank you, everybody, for watching this edition and participating in this edition of Let's Rage Coogs. And we will see you Saturday.
It'll be a long day on Saturday trying to get into Greenville. That's a great question, Chris. I think that question is going to be put to the test next year. You have all the Big 12 matchups. I'm curious to see how many people can pack into Fertitta Center. Really, I'd imagine that a lot of those new people that they're bringing in are just standing room only seats, which, looking around, it's been brought up as a cause for concern in forums and just on social media in general if they could potentially expand this arena to hold more capacity. But I think next year you're really going to get put that to the test. What we're seeing right now, like you said, Chris, 7,763 people fit into the Fertitta Center tonight. It might be more a week from officially now, since it's Thursday morning here. When Houston hosts Wichita State for their senior night. Marcus Sasser's a senior night for Reggie Taney as well, and Darius Bowser. So it'll be interesting to see. And, it's just a sign of where the program is with the level of success that they have sustained. People can follow me on Twitter at @Yanez_5. Official capacity, 7,035. That means a lot of standing room only. And they somehow managed to fit 700 more people than that. So, yeah, it's an interesting question, and it's good to see that they're stretching that to the limit. But once again, the final score here from inside the Fertitta Center, Houston comes out victorious, 89-59 over the Tulane Green Wave, and they are officially now 26-2 overall when it comes to their record. They are 14-1 in the American Athletic Conference. They have clinched at least a share of the conference regular season championship. They'll go for the lone crown on Saturday when they take on East Carolina. Next victory for Houston will clinch them sole possession of the American Athletic Conference regular season championship for 22-23. For Deon, Chris, for HAUNIL, for Star Pizza, and for the Saxenian family, I'd say thank every single one of you guys for being able to tune in. And like I said, making this Rage Coogs a part of your day or your middle of the night. Hopefully you guys can get some rest. And thank you as always. We can never say thank you enough.
Agreed. Dan, you got it, man. Close it out.
Go Cougs.